Good morning. All right, so I'd like to call this meeting to order for the regular meeting of the Desert Water Agency Board of Directors on June 17th, 2025. This meeting is being held virtually and in person. The link and the telephone options provided on the posted agenda is for the convenience of the public. For those of us in the room, I'd ask that you mute your mobile devices. And for those who are participating remotely or attending remotely, please mute your microphone until or unless you're ready to speak during the public comment. For discussion and questions, I'll call on directors in the following roll call order. Director Gracia, Director McKenna, Secretary Treasurer Bloomer, Vice President Bowman, and President Ortega. And all votes will be conducted via roll call. And with that, I'd like you to join me in this Pledge of Allegiance, please. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you. Right, may we have the roll call, please?
Director Gracia.
Present.
Director McKenna.
Present.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer.
Present.
Vice President Bowman's absence is noted, and President Ortega.
Present.
All present.
Thank you. We'll move to public comment on items not on today's agenda. This is the time for public comment for items that are the business of the Desert Water Agency, but not on today's agenda. Speakers are requested to keep their comments to no more than 3 minutes, and as provided in the Brown Act, the board is prohibited from acting on items not shown on today's agenda. Have we received any public comments?
No comments have received.
All right. Are there any members of the public, either in the room or virtually, who would like to comment at this time? Seeing none, we could move to item 5, which would be public comments on items listed on today's agenda. Again, we ask you to keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes. If we have any public comments related to today's agenda. Seeing none, we can move to the consent calendar. Items listed under today's consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by one motion of the board without discussion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a board member requests a specific item to be discussed and or removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Are there any items on today's consent calendar? Yes?
Hi. Yeah. I wanted to just make some comments on
Which one?
A, and I can't see the rest of the list. If you could scroll that just an inch, 2. There you go. And D, A and D.
A and D?
Yeah.
Okay.
Reading through the.
Can we see if there are any others?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No? Okay. All right. We'll start with A then.
Reading through the report from Public Affairs and Conservation Activities, I just wanted to acknowledge what great work you guys are doing. It looked like you were everywhere, and I think that's great for the agency, and so I wanted to acknowledge that. And also on your nomination to be reappointed to Region 9, the work you guys are doing over there is incredible, and I look forward to another term and continued terms in your involvement there. So that's it.
Okay. Thank you.
And with that, I move the consent calendar as presented.
All right. We have a first from Director Gracia.
I'll second.
All right. A second from Secretary Treasurer Bloomer. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia.
Aye.
Director McKenna.
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer.
Aye.
President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 7, we have several action items. We have quite a lot of action items today, actually. We'll start with the A, which is request authorization for general manager to execute change order number 1 to the 2024 Winter Replacement Pipelines Project. And we have Mr. Mullock. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, President Ortega and members of the board. I'm here this morning to request board authorization for the general manager to execute change order number 1 to the 2024 Winter Pipeline Replacement Project. Desert Water Agency is currently under contract with Boarding Excavating for the 2024 Winter Replacement Pipeline Project. That project is fully underway, and we expect that to be completed in early July. Staff identified 2 additional water mains that are in urgent need of replacement. Those water mains are located off of Sunrise and Tachiva, nearest cross streets. One of those mains is a 2-inch, 80-year-old unlined steel on North Cali Rolf between Paseo, Mirador, and Tachiva. That serves about 12 homes, and the flow rate has diminished on that pipeline due to its size and age. That flow capacity is below the desirable service levels, and therefore we feel it needs to be replaced. The second main is a 4-inch on Paseo El Mirador that basically provides service to that 2-inch water main. It is a 4-inch, also 80 years old, unlined steel, and should be replaced with that 2-inch to make sure the flow to that area is appropriate. In addition, fire hydrant on that 4-inch main will be replaced and moved onto the 8-inch water main. All the work for change order number 1 to replace those 2 mains is proposed change order of $510,800. And if authorized, that work would commence immediately following the current work that's underway. The board awarded a construction contract for the 2024 winter replacement pipeline projects at the September 17th, 2024 board meeting. The fiscal impact change order number 1 in the amount of $510,800 increases the original contract by 12% to $4,733,577. Augmentation to project 221063 in the amount of $575,000 has been included in the fiscal year 2025-26 budget request. Finance Director Sainz has reviewed this report. Legal review is not applicable. And with that, staff recommends board authorization for the general manager to execute change order number 1 to the 2024 winter replacement pipeline project. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Director Grasha, do you have any questions?
This comes out of the existing budget for pipeline replacement?
So this is in addition to
Right.
our existing budget. So we have included it in the draft that's going to be presented to
Okay.
you. So we're not asking for a budget augmentation here because that's going to be done in a subsequent item in this agenda.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Director McKenna?
Doing this by change order means it's not going out to bid. Are you comfortable that we're getting a good price, that it's reasonable for the work?
Yeah, so we actually reviewed that and went to suppliers and make sure that what the contractor was proposing made sense. There was some minor material markups, but it's otherwise in line with the prices they gave us on the original contract. So we think it's fair, and we also compared it with what our crews can do, and we, due to the kind of economy of scale, the contractor already being here gives us a better value that way.
Okay, good.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer?
No questions, thanks.
Okay. So when you said earlier that it would commence immediately, what does that actually mean? Does that mean, it sounded like when the other project was done or the current project was done, that then you would start on this, or you're doing it at the same time?
Yeah, so once the current project is complete, they'll immediately move into
Okay.
this area and start installation on these
And
pipelines.
you anticipate that approximately when?
Probably mid-July.
Mhm. All right. And the budget draft or discussion that we had 2 weeks ago, that did not include this number.
It did not, but when I present the final budget later on,
Mhm.
we will highlight that inclusion in the budget in the final draft.
Okay. All right.
Move the staff recommendation.
All right.
I'll second.
We have a first from Director Gracia and a second from Secretary Treasurer Bloomer. May we have a roll call, please? Roll call
Director
vote.
Gracia,
Aye.
Director McKenna,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you. 7B is board authorization for general manager to sign a landscaping maintenance contract. There's a lot for the general manager to do before he leaves us in a few weeks.
Getting things first up here.
Good morning.
Morning, President Ortega, members of the board. Today I'm here to talk about the new 3-year landscape maintenance services contract. I'll start with this. On April 16th, 5 landscape companies were contacted to gauge their interest in submitting a request for quotation for this new contract. Out of the 5 respondents, only 2 companies showed interest, and that was Down to Earth Landscaping and DL Certified Landscaping. On May 7th, I received 2 requests for quotations from the 2 companies, and soon after reviewing the submissions, there was a huge discrepancy from DNL Certified Landscaping. I contacted the company to ask them about the reasoning behind the discrepancy, and they informed me that they do not pay prevailing wage to their employees. And that was just the discrepancy in pricing. I informed them that that is the agency's policy when dealing with contracts, and they informed me that they were not interested in paying prevailing wage to their employees, so their submission was disqualified. Down to Earth Landscaping has submitted the request for quotation within the agency's guidelines, so they have won the bid. We've been working with Down to Earth Landscaping since 1996, and they do really good work for the agency. The fiscal impact, the annual fiscal impact of Down to Earth's landscaping maintenance services contract will be in the cost of $492,645, or $41,053.75 monthly. Recommendation, staff requests board authorization to enter into 3-year landscape maintenance services contract with Down to Earth for the annual amount of $492,645 for the purpose of providing landscape for all DWA sites. And with that, are there any questions?
All right, Director Gracia.
I reviewed this quite closely, and I don't have any questions.
All right. Director McKenna.
I have none, thanks.
Thank you. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer.
I have none. Thank you.
All right. Just curious, when you say all locations, those would be well sites and
A total of 79 sites, 28 irrigated, which are visited weekly, and 51 that are non-irrigated that are visited once a month. And this includes Snow Creek intakes, Whitewater Mutual, Mission Creek ponds, weed abatement on the roadways and portion of the slope.
okay. Thank you for the clarification. All right. So I'll look for a motion.
Move staff recommendation.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right. The first from Director Gracia and a second from Secretary Treasurer Bloomer. May we have the roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director McKenna,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
Aye.
and Vice President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right.
Thank you, President, members of the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. 7C would be request board approval of July 2025 cost of living salary increase for DWA employees. Finance Director signs.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. Our HR director is not with us today on a well-deserved vacation, so I'm taking over presenting this item on her behalf. In the 2024 to 2027 memorandum of understanding that was between the Desert Water Agency and the Desert Water Agency's Employees Association that is currently in effect, it calls for a cost of living increase for salaries effective on July 1st of every year. Now, that cost of service rate is determined by the Riverside San Bernardino, Ontario Consumer Price Index year over year with the measurement month of March. And for March 2025, the CPI was 2.6%. And so based off of that MOU currently in effect, DWA employees will receive a 2.6 salary adjustment. Staff has updated the Desert Water Agency monthly salary schedule to reflect that 2.6% increase for all salary ranges effective the pay periods, including the July 1st, 2025 pay date. And a Human Resources Committee has reviewed the COLA increase proposal and recommended it to be presented to the full Board of Directors for approval. The total fiscal impact to the agency is approximately $285,000, which has been included in the 25-26 budget that will be before you during this board meeting. Staff is recommending the Board of Directors approve a 2.6 cost of living increase to DWA employees with an effective date of the pay periods including July 1, 2025, and approve the July 2025 DWA monthly salary schedule reflecting a 2.6% increase. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have with regards to this report.
All right, thank you. Director Gracia, do you have some questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
All right, Director McKenna?
I have none, thank you.
Right. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer?
None for me.
Right. So I have none.
Move the staff recommendation.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right. I have a first from Director Gracia and a second from Secretary Treasurer Bloomer. May we have the roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director McKenna,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. 7D would be request adoption for resolutions number 1346, 1347, 1348, establishing rates and fees for domestic water service, recycled water service, and sewer service. And that would be Mr. Slough. Good morning.
Good morning, President Ortega and members of the board. I'm here today to request adoption of resolutions 1346, 1347, and 1348, establishing rates and fees for domestic water service, recycled water service, and sewer service. So back in 2023, the agency conducted a comprehensive rate study with consultant NBS. Also, at the same time, we conducted a public protest hearing pursuant to Prop 218. And the result of those, the board had adopted a 5-year rate schedule to be implemented annually by the board action every year. So during the budget process, we review those rates and determine the increases needed to meet our expense budgets. So at this time, staff requests that the Board of Directors acts on these 3 resolutions to update the domestic water, sewer, and recycled water rates for the 3rd of 5 rate increases that were approved by the board on that rate schedule. The recycled water rates and sewer pass-through rates charged to CVWD would be effective July 1st of 2025. And the domestic water and agency sewer charges that I'll go through will be effective January 1st, 2026. So I'll start with Resolution 1346, establishing rates and fees and charges for domestic water service. With this resolution, there would be updates to 3 quantitative rates. The potable water rate, which is the quantitative water rate component of the monthly service charge. It's per 100 cubic foot for all metered and unmetered water used for all purposes other than temporary service facilities and then the Chino Creek potable water system. So this rate is, the current rate is $2.59 per HCF, and we're proposing an increase to 2.75, which would be about a 6.2% increase. For the Chino Creek potable water rate, this is a separate part of the system that just serves the Palm Springs aerial tramway. And so this commands a separate rate. That current rate is $7.36 per HCF with a proposed increase to $8.46 46. The temporary construction meter water rate is also included in this resolution. And we are proposing an adjustment from the current rate of $2.64 per HCF to $2.80. Along with these quantitative rates, we have several, the fixed monthly service charge also includes rate updates that are listed in the resolution. And these rates were developed to maintain a 30% fixed revenue from the monthly service charge and a 70% from the quantitative rate. And if you look at all the rates, the average increase of all those rates is about 6.25%. In addition to the quantitative rates already mentioned, there are a couple special rates that may be imposed by the board in certain circumstances. And so we need to also update those rates at the same time. The first rate being the drought rate. And so this would be added to the normal monthly quantitative charge. And it may be adopted by the Board of Directors and implemented in case of extreme water shortage. This rate would only remain in place for 6 months unless it was increased, reviewed, or rescinded by the board. And staff would continue to monitor consumption level and revenues to determine when the recommendation of the implementation of this rate. And the rates are listed in the staff report. In addition to the drought rate, we also have the revenue stabilization rate, which kind of operates in the same manner as the drought rate. It's added to the monthly quantitative charge. This rate, the drought rate takes priority over this rate, and this rate would only be implemented in the case that consumption was a lot lower than anticipated and revenues have fallen below a certain threshold. And so the drought rate is the primary rate that would be used in a water shortage. And then both rates cannot be in effect at the same time. And we have a couple additional charges that will be updated through Resolution 1346. There's a zone charge that is also added to the quantitative rate, and it's used to cover costs associated with pumping water to higher elevations. And so you can see in the rates listed, there's actually 4 kind of tiers. One is the base rate, which there's nothing added to the quantitative rate. And then you see there's several other zones that are combined because they're in similar circumstances. And those rates would be effective January 1st, 2026. Next, the resolution will also include adjustments to the monthly fire service charge. The rates are included in the staff report, and these represent a 6.25% increase with the effective date of January 1st, 2026. And then finally, for Resolution 1346, there's also an update to the backflow protection device repair charge. And then the effective January 1st, 2026 with the rates listed in the staff report. Before I move on to recycled water, are there any questions regarding Resolution 1346 for domestic water?
Director Gracia?
On the backflow charge, is this scheduled to be when the new policies on backflow devices is put into play? Are we expecting this to take a shift? Do you know? Have you thought about it? I'm thinking about those customers that are going to be forced to upgrade their backflow devices.
If currently, a customer that has a backflow currently receives the charge listed in the table here,
Right.
That charge will be increased to the proposed values here for all customers that have a backflow. For any customer that will need a backflow, they will then receive a backflow charge to their account.
Okay.
Only if they are required to have a backflow device.
So you're not expecting a bunch of customers being forced to upgrade their backflow devices? My understanding is that's the case in some places, and I just don't know.
I think potentially there may be commercial customers that currently do not have backflows that potentially
Oh.
may
Okay,
be required to put a backflow devices on them.
all right, thank you.
All right. Director
There,
McKenna?
there was
Sorry.
one other maybe.
Okay.
Oh,
Go ahead.
if you could go back just a click or two. On the fire service charge, say the 4-inch meter, it's $38. That pays for all the system that kind of it held back, like the extra reservoir size, the extra pump size that's required above and what would be typically required if we were just providing domestic water. Is that the reasoning behind this, or?
For a fire service
Right.
charge. It's the fire service charge is for maintaining for us to do the testing on that and so forth.
Uh-huh.
And a finance director signs if you want to add to that. It's
For the system itself and essentially the additional capacity, there's other charges that they pay upfront for that. This is just for the ongoing maintenance and
Right.
management of
Okay.
that service.
Thank you. No other questions.
Right. Director McKenna?
I have none, thank you.
All right. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer?
None for me.
Okay. My question is, for these rate increases, it sounds like they're pretty much in line with the same percentage, from what you said.
Correct.
Yeah. And is that mapped to or identical to what we had proposed in the rate study 2 years ago?
Yes, they match the rate study proposed rates.
Okay. All right. I have no other questions.
Right,
Did you
thank
want to continue?
Yep.
Yep.
Moving on to Resolution 1347, establishing rates, fees, and charges for recycled water. Back in July of 2022, the agency reduced the recycled water rate from 79 cents per 100 cubic feet to 60 cents per 100 cubic feet, and implemented a multi-year strategy to increase the quantitative rate by 5 cents per 100 cubic feet per year through 2028. And this would make the cost of recycled water comparable to the cost of pumping groundwater from a private well, including the replenishment assessment charge levied by DWA. After 2028, a new rate study will be performed to determine the quantitative rate of recycled water. MBS, our rate study partner, incorporated this quantitative rate strategy into its review of DWA's recycled water cost and revenues. So during the 2023 rate study, the 5-year fixed rate increase plan was put in place to continue to generate 0.5% of recycled water revenue requirements from the fixed monthly charge, and then the remaining 99.5% from the monthly quantitative rate. So we are proposing, effective July 1st, 2025, a quantitative rate per HCF of 75 cents, which is 5 cents greater than the current rate. And then we've also included a listing of the monthly service charges. Each of these rates represent about a 6.25% increase from the current rates. Any questions on the recycled water rates before we move on to the sewer rates?
Director Gracia?
No questions.
All right. Director McKenna?
Me?
All right. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer?
None for me.
All right. And I have none. So please
Thank you.
proceed.
Resolution number 1348, establishing rates, fees, and charges for sewer service. So in addition to the agency's charges for sewer services, we also collect treatment charges imposed by CVWD and the city of Palm Springs for sewer treatment. CVWD imposes a charge for sewer customers that live in Cathedral City, and the city of Palm Springs imposes the charge for customers located in the Palm Oasis and the Dream Homes community within Cathedral City. These charges are collected by the agency on the customer's monthly water bills and then remitted to each of those agencies in full on a monthly basis. For the CVWD monthly sewer service charge, on next week on June 24th, the CVWD board will vote to adopt a rate increase effective July 1st of 2025. If adopted by the CVWD's board, DWA must adopt the same rate increase in order to pass through the charges to the DWA customers whose sewage is collected by DWA and then delivered to CVWD for treatment. The proposed rate increase to $31.96 will only be implemented if the CVWD's board elects to increase the rate. So that current CVWD rate is $29.48. That would increase to $31.96. And so if we look at the total rate being charged to our customers, starting on July 1st for Cathedral City sewer services, that rate would be $29.62, which includes the DWA rate of $7.66, and then the updated CVWD rate of $31.96. Oh, sorry, 39 cents. Thank you. The resolution does include a monthly service charge that DWA collects per EDU, or equivalent dwelling unit. We propose a rate increase for July 1st of 2026 from the current rate of $7.66 to $8.03. At that time, that would bring the total Cathedral City sewer service charge for our customers to $39.99, which includes the $31.96 rate from CVWD, and then the updated rate, DWA rate of $8.03. So this would also affect our customers in the Palm Oasis and Dream Homes community. So that rate, which would be effective of January 1st, 2026, would be $28.03, which includes the $8.03 for the DWA rate and the $20 for the city of Palm Springs rate. And at this time, we don't foresee the city of Palm Springs planning to increase their rate. Any questions on the sewer rates before we go on to the fiscal impacts?
No questions.
Done?
All right.
Thank you.
And well, I have one. So we say right now that we don't anticipate the city of Palm Springs raising that $20 rate. What are we basing that on?
They have not raised it in,
They have not raised it in several years, but also they have not gone through a Prop 218 process. We reach out to them, Veolia, every year and to confirm that if they're planning on raising their rates or not. And 2 years ago, I believe it says, no, the city likes the rates where they're at and aren't looking to increase them at any time soon. But when they do, they would have to go through the 218 process. And so then we would have notification of that.
So if they did that in this coming fiscal year, then let's just say that rate increase happened during this coming fiscal year, what would happen? What would we end up having to do? You would be coming back to us with that proposed rate change?
You are correct. Yes. If it becomes effective within the fiscal year, we would come back with another resolution requesting that pass-through charge to change.
Okay, thank you. All right. Is there a motion?
Move the, are we doing this all at once or do we have to have them broken down? 1, 2, 3.
We can take them all at once, but if there is a no vote, we will have to separate them out and
Okay.
find out which one it is.
Okay, then I move the staff recommendation on all items listed.
All right,
Work?
sure.
I'll second.
All right. I have have a first from Director Grasha and a second from Secretary Treasurer Bloomer. May we have the roll call vote, please?
Director Grasha,
Aye.
Director McKenna,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. So that takes us to 7E, request adoption of fiscal year 2025-2026 operating, general, and wastewater budgets. You're on again.
Thank you, Director Ortega. Before you, you have the final version of the fiscal year 25-26 operating, general, and wastewater budgets. There were a few changes from the draft budget that was presented back on June 3rd to the board, and I would like to go over those adjustments. In the operating fund, there was an addition of $3,150 to the Board of Directors compensation to accommodate the proposed 2.6 COLA adjustment that is given to the rest of DWA employees. There was also an addition of $100,000 to information technology expenses. And this was for some IT consulting that had originally been budgeted based on actual expenses instead of the contract amount. And then there was also an addition of $575,000 to augment capital project 2024 winter replacement pipelines. And that was based on the action item that has already been presented and adopted. And as a result of these changes, then there was an adjustment to the reserve of operations. We originally had a increase to the reserve of operations of 1.1 million. That has now been reduced by the 575,000 that has been earmarked for the winter pipeline replacement project. In the general fund, there was just one adjustment, and that was the addition of the $3,150 to the Board of Directors compensation for the proposed 2.6 COLA adjustment. There were no changes to the wastewater fund budget. And so the fiscal impact, the 25-26 budget provides the anticipated revenues and expenditures for the operating, general, and wastewater funds for the upcoming fiscal year. And at this time, staff would recommend that the Board of Directors adopt the proposed budgets for all funds for the fiscal year of 25-26.
All right.
Any
Thank you.
questions?
Any questions?
No questions.
All right.
I think I've
Director
got it
McKenna.
all figured out.
On page 2 of the document where it talks about operating revenues, water sales, it goes from 41 million in the current budget to 48 million in the next budget. And that's a 17% increase, but the increase in price was 6%. So can you explain the difference for me?
It's consumption. So we've seen increase in consumption over the last 2 years. And so when we build out the budget, we take the average of the consumption over the last 2 years. And so that's what's creating or making up that other increase in the water sales revenue budget.
Well, that's terrible news when we come to our conservation efforts, but okay, I understand it now. Something similar happened in water replenishment. Does that follow on from increased consumption?
Yes, correct, because the water replenishment charges, that's our charging ourselves for the water that is produced and then passed along to the customers. So that would also reflect that increase in consumption.
All right, moving on to power purchases on pumping expense, just a 3% increase there, and we're all experiencing much higher percentage increases in energy costs than that. Is that a good number, you think?
Yeah, that was the number that was provided by the operations who handles the tracking of those charges.
Well, let's hope they're right. Transmission and distribution expenses, supervision and engineering moved from $882,000 to over $1 million, and that's another fairly big increase, about 16%. Could you help me figure that one out? That's page 3 of the document.
Added 2 positions.
A lot of that is probably is increased labor costs from the COLA adjustment and then additional engineering staff, GIS staff.
Ah, Okay, yeah, I get that. But, okay. So I'll skip that one. I understand it better now. You have to help me with this because my private sector background, I struggle a bit with this one. We pay a lot of capital expenditure from revenue directly. At $17 million in this current budget. So our total budget of 70 million. But then when I look at these budgets, I see a depreciation. So if it's taken out of revenue, there would be no balance sheet entry if we did balance sheets. So there would be no depreciation. How do we get this fairly big depreciation number, a couple of $1 million here and there? Could you help me with that?
So this budget is kind of presented somewhat in this is the cash that we're going to bring in and the cash that we're going to lay out for expenditures. So when it comes to capital expenditures, the cash comes out now, but there's no expense related to that item. Now, when we purchase it, the expense goes through the depreciation expense over the life of the asset. So if we spend $10 million on an asset and it's a 20-year asset, we're going to see $500,000 in expense every year included in that depreciation number. So that depreciation represents the value of all those capital projects that we've paid for in the past. And that's just recognizing the expense over the life of those assets.
And that's precisely what I have trouble with, is that how would you even calculate that depreciation if you completely expensed the asset?
So we have a separate capital assets ledger that tracks the original cost and it tracks the life of that asset. And so we basically amortize that upfront cost over the life of the asset on an annual basis. And so we have schedules that shows us, like we could go and look right now and we could tell you, as of right now, our depreciation expense in 2030 should be this.
Right. But are we counting it twice?
For the budget purposes, if you look here, we do back out the depreciation expense, and that is not actually included in the final cash number that we're calculating from our revenues and our expenses.
All right, you've actually answered my next question right there. Okay, I get it now, but I am challenged by this sometimes, so I appreciate you explaining it to me. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Right. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer.
No questions.
All right, I have no additional questions. So can we proceed with a motion?
I move the staff recommendation.
All right.
I'll second.
All right. I have a first from Director Gracia and a second from Secretary Treasurer Bloomer. May we have the roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director McKenna,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right. Now we can move to a discussion item, which is 8A, presentation on Water Year 2023-2024 Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, annual reports for the Indio, Mission Creek, and San Gorgonio Pass subbasins. Good morning.
Morning, President Ortega, members of the board. The Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, thank you, requires that high and medium priority basins or subbasins in the state of California develop and implement what are called groundwater sustainability plans. So these plans are meant to show how groundwater management agencies like Desert Water will achieve long-term groundwater sustainability within the basins that we're responsible for. Part of the requirements of SGMA are 5-year updates to that plan, where we take kind of like a deep dive into the entire plan. We incorporate any data that we have collected over the last 5 years and anything new that's going on in the water world. But one of the other requirements under SGMA is that we submit annual reports for each of these subbasins. And that's really like a year-end review. So what was going on in each subbasin over the last water year? We're talking about what did the supply look like? What did the demand look like? what was coming in and what was leaving the basin. So that's really like the screenshot or the snapshot of what happened over the last year. Desert Water Agency is what we call a groundwater sustainability agency, or GSA, for the Indio, Mission Creek, and San Gorgonio Pass subbasins. So we collaborate with other agencies on annual reports for all three of those basins, and that's what we're going to go over today. Thank you. No, you're fine. You can start there. That's okay. Yeah, we can start with that one. Okay, perfect. So as I said, we're going to go over the annual reports for each of the three subbasins for which we are GSAs for water year 23-24. Oh, there we go. Yep, gotcha. So just to overview the presentation, we'll start with just a recap of what SEGMA is, which we kind of just did. We'll go over recent updates to our compliance efforts for each of the subbasins, and then we'll do a high-level overview for each of those annual reports. We talked about what SIGMA was, and we talked about the requirements. One of the things I did not mention is that if an agency or a group of agencies has an existing management plan for a given basin that already shows that we're sustainably managing that basin, we can submit that in lieu of a GSP. So it would be called an alternative plan. In the case of the Indio and Mission Creek subbasins, that's exactly what we did. We already had a management plan in place. That is the plan we submitted, along with a bridge document that showed how our existing plan met the requirements of SIGMA. By comparison, the San Gorgonio Pass basin did not have an existing plan in place, so they actually developed a new groundwater sustainability plan and submitted that plan. Compliance updates, we actually did our first 5-year update for the Indio and Mission Creek subbasin plans back in 2021, submitted those to DWR in December of that year, and both of those alternative plan updates were approved by DWR on June 27th of 2024. They did provide minor corrective actions, which we will be addressing and incorporating into our next 5-year update, which we're about to kick off right now. And we submitted our annual reports for both of those subbasins ahead of that April 1st, 2025 deadline. The San Gorgonio Pass subbasin, as I said, they didn't have an existing plan in place, so they submitted their new GSP to DWR back in January of 2022. DWR reviewed and approved that GSP in October of 2023, again with minor corrective actions. So really they review the plans and they make recommendations for how you can improve on those plans. And so likewise, those corrective actions will be addressed in the 5-year update that we're about to kick off. We submitted the annual report for the San Gorgonio Pass basin, likewise ahead of the April 1st deadline of this year. So we'll go ahead and start our high-level overview with the Indio subbasin. Again, when we're talking about water year 23-24, it is the time period from October 1st of 2023 through September 30th of 2024. Our Indio subbasin team is comprised of our consultants, Todd Groundwater, and the Indio subbasin GSAs, that is Coachella Valley Water District. Their boundary is the area in yellow that you see on the map. Coachella Water Authority, they have the area in green. Desert Water Agency's boundary is the area in blue that you see. And Indio Water Authority is the area in pink. So we all work together collaboratively to develop these annual reports and the 5-year updates. On the supply and demand side for water year 23-24, we saw just over 554 acre feet of demand in the Indio subbasin, pretty evenly split between agriculture and urban use. Now, it was a 4% increase from the prior water year. We do have a little bit of industrial use and what we call undetermined use. So that's really the minimal pumpers that we have in the basin, anybody that would produce from their private well less than 25 acre feet in CV's area or less than 10 acre feet in our area. That also includes any unreported tribal use. On the supply side, this is really how we meet those demands, right? The different sources that we use. So we saw a total of 273,000 and change of canal water delivered to the area. That's mainly used to serve our agricultural demand. Just over 267,000 acre feet of groundwater extraction, mainly urban use. We saw a total of 13,164 acre feet of recycled water produced from 3 different facilities in the basin. So that would include Desert Water Agency's recycling facility as well as 2 recycling facilities in CVWD's service area. And then we are the only agency that actually uses local surface water to serve our customers. In water year 23-24, we had a total of 607 acre feet of surface water directly used by our customers. So these sources would include Snow Creek, Chino Creek, and then Whitewater, which is that non-potable water source. I like this table because it's very positive for us. So this is the projected demand comparison. When we put together our 5-year updates, we do a demand forecast. So really we're looking into the future, in our forecast window. During the 22 update, our forecast window extended out to 2045. So really we're taking the data that we do have through 2019 and we are putting that into our model and we are projecting what we think is going to happen over the next several years. One good thing to note here, as you can see, is the blue bars are all below that top line, right? So our actual usage for the last 5 years has been below what we projected we were going to use. So that's good news. And our 5-year average actual water use is actually around 50,000 acre feet less than what we projected for our 2024 demands in the subbasin. In terms of where we get our data from, we have groundwater wells located throughout the basin, as you can see in the map at right. For water year 23-24, we used data from a total of 355 wells throughout the subbasin. Of those wells, 57 are what we call key wells, as identified in our 22 alternative plan update. And these are the wells that we use to track our groundwater sustainability. So for each of these 57 wells, those are the ones that you see in green, we apply a minimum threshold, which is based on the observed low levels in the groundwater basin happened around 2009. And then what we do is we compare our current groundwater levels against those minimum thresholds to see how we're doing. And I'm happy to say that for this subbasin, all of the levels in our key wells were above the minimum thresholds for water year 23-24. So there's 2 different maps that we look at when we talk about change in levels. We're looking at the year-to-year change, and then we also look at the long-term change. So you would expect to see some fluctuations in your annual change in groundwater levels just based on the type of water you have, pumping from year to year, deliveries, and that sort of thing. So in our 1-year change in groundwater levels, we're seeing, if you look up at the top of the map, that area in blue is directly adjacent to our whitewater replenishment facility. Blue means that we saw a significant increase in levels, which is to be expected because we delivered a lot of water last year to that facility. Conversely, you'll see areas that in the red, the zone near the Thomas E. Levy groundwater replenishment facility. So that indicates a decrease in levels, and that's because, or I should say mainly due to CVWD's voluntary reductions in Colorado River deliveries. And that affected this facility because they reduced the amount of water that they were delivering to that facility last year. When we're talking about groundwater sustainability, what we really want to focus on is the long-term change in levels, not just the year-to-year. So on this map, what we did is we compared our current groundwater levels for water year 23-24 with those observed low levels that we talked about from 2009. And as you can see, pretty much the entire basin is in the shades of blue to green, which means that we're seeing an overall increase in groundwater levels over time, and that's a good thing. Because that means that we're sustainably managing the basin. In terms of change in groundwater storage for water year 23-24, our total inflows to the basin were 510,642 acre feet. A good portion of that was groundwater replenishment. As I said, we brought quite a bit of water into the basin last year to the tune of around 297,000 acre feet, just shy. Outflows from the basin, we saw just shy of 326,000 acre feet. A lot of that due to groundwater pumping, which again serves our urban demand for the most part. 267,000 acre feet and change. But the positive here is when we compare our inflows and our outflows, we're seeing an overall net increase in storage to the basin of 184,670 acre feet, which means we put a lot more water in than we took out. Annual change in storage over time. So this is, again, we're talking about groundwater sustainability. We really want to look at that long-term change. Like how are we doing in terms of what we're taking in and what we're putting out over the long term? And I'm happy to say again that both of our long-term outlooks for 10 and 20-year averages are both positive. So when we look at the 10-year average change in storage, it's been positive since 2017. So it's kind of that rolling average. When we look at the 20-year average, it actually shifted into the positive category last year. So since 2023. So we're doing well, right? We're going in the right direction. We're adding more water to the basin than we're taking out. In terms of projects and management actions, so we have a list of PMAs, we call them, in each of our plans. And we provide an update every year of how we're doing on each of those projects. In the area of water conservation, we see continued outreach and education efforts. I know our conservation team is working very hard, as you guys have alluded to. There's a lot of things going on in conservation, right? We have making conservation a California way of life. We have ban on non-functional turf, and then incentives and whatnot. So they've been working very hard this year to get the information out there. In terms of our long-term water supply development, we continue to be actively involved in those long-term supply and delivery projects, such as Lake Paris, Sites Reservoir, and Delta Conveyance. And then in the area of water quality protection, we continue to implement and work with other agencies throughout the valley to implement our Coachella Valley Salt Nutrient Management Plan. And we also constructed a monitoring well, groundwater quality monitoring well this water year, which will help fill data gaps and provide us with more valuable information on how our basin is doing. If you would like to take a look at the full report or get more information, you're welcome to visit the website for the subbasin, www.indiosubbasinsigma.org. A lot of valuable information on there. They have, especially now that we're getting ready to kick off the 5-year update, they're going to have continuous updates on public meetings and kind of the schedule of that process. So it will be a really useful tool as we go through that full plan update. Any questions on the Indio subbasin before we move on?
Thank you. Director Grasha.
Only to point out that I remember sitting in a meeting at CVWD when Steve Robbins was general manager, and he was explaining how the Thomas Levy recharge facility was going to, level out the entire basin, and everything. It was going to make everything work great. And I was thinking the whole time that there's no way that's going to, that's going to work. And all these years later, to be sitting here and see these numbers all across the basin showing positive inflows, I got to say, I never believed for a minute that that would work, because those wells were, there were areas of down there that were just, foundations were cracking, let's put it that way. So this is great news, and
Great news.
it's kind of
Thank you so
surreal
much.
to be hearing it, really. But thank you.
You're welcome, of course. We also have the Palm Desert Replenishment Facility, which is close to Thomas E. Levy, and they're replenishing water there too. So it's really helping that middle part of the valley.
Right.
Right. Director McKenna.
Thank you for the great work. Always appreciating to see some good news. Thanks.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer.
No questions. Thanks.
And back to the Thomas Lee facility, so that I know where we're actually, is this the one that's in the hills above La Quinta?
Yes.
Yeah, that was the old vineyard. Right. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So go ahead.
We will go ahead and move on to the next basin. So we're going to go over the 2023-24 annual report for Mission Creek. Our Mission Creek subbasin team consists of our consultant, WSP, and the 3 collaborating agencies for that basin. That's Desert Water, Coachella Valley Water District, and Mission Springs Water District. We collected groundwater elevation data from a total of 24 wells across the Mission Creek subbasin in water year 23-24. Of those wells, 9 of them are, again, what we would consider those key wells as identified by our 22 alternative plan update. We use these wells to track our groundwater sustainability, Similar to Indio, we take our current groundwater levels in each of those wells. We compare them to those observed low levels from 2009. And in all cases, the key well levels were above the minimum thresholds. I will note that there was one key well that fell below the measurable objective. So that's kind of like a warning, right? A warning level. This well is a fairly newly constructed well. So there's not a lot of historical data. And the MO and MT that were set for that well were provisional. And so really meant to be a temporary level until we gathered more information. Now we have 5 additional years of data on that well. We will take a look at those levels as part of this 5-year update and see if we need to adjust it. 1-year change in levels across this basin, you see an overall decrease of about a foot. So basically stable, just a slight decrease. You're seeing mounding right near the Mission Creek replenishment facility because again, we delivered water that year and it hasn't quite spread out across the basin in water year 23-24. Again, when we're talking about sustainability, we really want to focus on the long-term change in storage across the basin. And that's what this map is showing here. So again, we're looking at our current levels compared to the observed low levels for the basin. And you can see that across the basin, aside from directly adjacent to the replenishment facility, you're seeing those colors in greens and blues, which means that overall we've seen an increase in our groundwater levels over time. The reason that you're seeing that decrease right near the facility is that we delivered large quantities of water back around 2009, and then we kind of dialed back those deliveries and it wasn't as much. So you, again, will see large fluctuations in water levels near these replenishment facilities. But again, across the basin overall, we're seeing that increase over time. Change in groundwater storage for water year 23-24. We saw total inflow to the basin of about 17,000 acre feet. Artificial recharge, so that's the water that we delivered to the Mission Creek replenishment facility, was around 5,400 acre feet. And then we've got natural inflows and return flows from use, which is really that water that's applied to the ground for irrigation. Not all of it is used by the plants, and so some of it will work its way back down into the aquifer. Outflows from the basin, we saw a total of 16,820 acre feet. Majority of that coming from groundwater extraction. Again, good news, the overall change in storage for the water year was a net increase of about 200 acre feet. So pretty much stable, but a little bit better than we were last year. Annual change in groundwater storage. So again, these are those long-term trends that we're looking at. The 20-year average in the Mission Creek subbasin continues to be in balance. And then the 10-year average has shown an upward trend this year. So we did deliver a significant amount of water, I would say a decent amount of water last year. I will note that in 2024 calendar year, we delivered a total of 12,600 acre feet to this facility, but you're only seeing about 5,400 reflected here because it's water year, right? And not calendar year. So just from October to December, we delivered over 7,000 acre feet to that facility, but you're not going to see that until the next report. And then in terms of progress that we've made on projects and management actions, very similar to the Indio subbasin. So we continue to work hard on that education and outreach. I know Mission Creek provides incentives to their customers. We continue to be actively involved in those long-term supply and delivery projects. There are several septic to sewer projects happening in Mission Springs Water District service area. So that's taking those homes off of septic systems and putting them on the public sewer supply. And then again, continued progress made on implementation of Sigma. If you want more information on the Mission Creek subbasin, they also have a website, www.missioncreeksubbasinsigma.org. And again, we're kicking off the 2027 update to this subbasin, so you will find very valuable information on that website as we move forward with that process. Any questions on the Mission Creek subbasin?
Right, thank you. Director Gracia?
No questions, but just know I have clicked on the links and spent a lot of time reading through those reports. They're very helpful. Thanks.
Very good.
And Director McKenna?
I have none, thank you.
Right. Secretary Treasurer Bloom?
None for me.
All right, I just have one question. Can you remind me, why is 2009 the sort of base year that we're using?
Those were really, that was the year we were in severe drought, and that was where we really saw the lowest groundwater elevations historically in that area, I would say in recent history. And even at that level, we weren't experiencing, I would say, impacts. So we said, let's set that at the low level. This is the lowest we've seen, and we're going to base our progress on that level. So as we're moving forward, we're comparing everything to that.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, go ahead.
Home stretch. We're going to go ahead and do a high-level overview of the water year 23-24 annual report for the San Gorgonio Pass Subbasin. Our San Gorgonio Pass Subbasin team consists of our consultants, Provost and Pritchard, and our San Gorgonio GSAs, Desert Water Agency GSA, the San Gorgonio Pass GSA, and the Verbinia GSA. All of the agencies and districts that are listed at the bottom are part of one of those three GSAs. In terms of groundwater elevation data for this subbasin, data was collected. We have 9 monitoring wells in the network for San Gorgonio Pass. We only had data available from 8 of them for water year 23-24. Before those 8 wells, when comparing the current groundwater levels with the MTs for those, all of those monitoring wells, key wells, if you will, were above the minimum threshold. And again, there was one well that they didn't have data for in 23-24. The last available data for that well was from April of 2023. So when we get ready to kickstart the 5-year update for this plan, which will be happening in the next month, that's one of the things that we'll look at, is that well and whether it's still viable, whether we still can collect data, or whether we need to select a different location. In terms of the annual change in groundwater storage, this graph is just a sample of the hydrographs. There is a hydrograph just like this for every one of those monitoring wells in the plan, but I didn't want to go through 8 slides of hydrographs. So I'm just giving you a sample here. Groundwater levels in all parts of the subbasin, as we said, were above the minimum thresholds for water year 23-24. For the wells that we were able to collect data from, those levels were also above the measurable objectives, again, that warning level. And the 2027 milestone, which you see here on this graph, that little black dot, that's kind of the checkpoint. And then most wells showed an increase in groundwater levels, excuse me, over time. In terms of total water use for the San Gorgonio Pass Subbasin, we saw 9,650 acre-feet of groundwater use in water year 23-24. The overwhelming majority of that is urban and domestic use, with a small amount of industrial use. They don't have any other than groundwater extraction. There is no current other water supply to the basin specifically, but they are working on that. So when we talk about PMAs, we'll discuss that. Change in groundwater storage for water year 23-24 actually saw an overall net positive change in storage of 2,200 acre-feet. So this is good. That means we did better than last year in terms of our storage levels. The models have a longer base period showing an increase during wet periods. So you're seeing a decrease here, but if you look back in time, there's more fluctuation happening. And as we move forward in time, you'll see this graph start to reflect those fluctuations. And again, they are in discussions to develop alternative sources of supply, which will help in this area as well. PMAs, this is where we're talking about those alternative sources of supply. So San Gorgonio Pass Subbasin, on behalf of the GSAs in the San Gorgonio Pass area, or San Gorgonio Pass Water Agency, I should say, have initiated evaluations for potential additional conveyance and recharge facilities, whether that be bringing water in from the State Water Project or bringing water in from the Colorado River Aqueduct. These are all things that they're discussing right now as possibilities to bring additional water into the basin. Similar to the other basins, we're seeing continued participation in long-term supply and delivery projects like Sites Reservoir and Delta Conveyance. And then we were recently in the subbasin granted funding to construct 4 nested monitoring wells in the San Gorgonio Pass Subbasin. So this will really help us increase the number of wells that we have to collect data from, help fill those data gaps, and give us a better overall picture of what's happening in this subbasin. Similar to the other 2, there is a website dedicated to San Gorgonio Pass Subbasin Sigma. That's www.sgpgsas.org. This one is about a month behind the others in terms of us kicking off our 5-year update. So we'll have the kickoff meeting soon, but it is scheduled to happen over the next year and a half, just like the others. So you'll want to stay tuned into the website to get updates on that process. So just as an overall summary of how we did this year, groundwater levels in all 3 subbasins continue to remain above those minimum thresholds, which is a good sign. We have a net positive change in storage in all 3 subbasins for water year 23-24, which again means we put more water in than we took out. We continue to participate in those long-term storage and delivery projects throughout the basins. And then we did see continued progress in implementing our projects and management actions as identified in our alternative plan updates and the GSP for the San Gorgonio Pass subbasin. Any questions?
Great, thank you. Director Gracia?
No questions.
Right. Director McKenna?
None for me, thanks.
All right. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer?
No questions, but thanks for the updates.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we can move to item 9. And that is a public hearing,
Ooh,
which requires a different script apparently.
what are we doing?
So this would be 9A 2025-2026 groundwater replenishment assessment for the West Whitewater River Subbasin and Mission Creek Subbasin. Right. So there will be a request for adoption of resolution number 1349, making findings in fact pursuant to section 15.4 of DWA law for the West Whitewater River Subbasin Replenishment Assessment. Request adoption of resolution number 1350, levying a replenishment assessment. Request adoption of resolution number 1351, making findings in fact pursuant to sections 15.4 of DWA law for the Mission Creek Subbasin Replenishment Assessment, and then the request for adoption of resolution number 1352, levying a replenishment assessment. Right. All right. So with that, I will look toward our finance director to kick us off.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. And I also like to point out that we have Travis Romaine from Krieger and Stewart attending here virtually, just to help with answer any questions that may arise with regards to the engineer's report. Following the presentation of the engineer's report on the groundwater replenishment and assessment program for 25-26 at the board's May 20th meeting, a determination was made at that time that funds should be raised by a replenishment assessment charge, and the board set today as a time and place for the hearing on that matter. As indicated in the replenishment reports, the proposed groundwater replenishment assessment for both the West Whitewater area of benefit and the Mission Creek area of benefit for the fiscal year 25-26 is $235 per acre foot of production. After the last meeting, after the meeting on May 20th, a copy of the notice of today's public hearing was set out to all pumpers on June 3rd, 2025. And that advised them of today's scheduled public hearing, as well as the recommended replenishment assessment charge rate of $235 to be considered today. Also, the notice of public hearing was setting the date for today was published in the public record on June 3rd. Also included in the packet is a comparison of the historic and proposed groundwater replenishment rates for the Desert Water Agency and Coachella Valley Water District, as shown as Exhibit 8 in the engineer's report. And when you look at that exhibit, you will notice that DWA's rate is substantially higher for the replenishment assessment charge as compared to CVWD for both the Mission Creek Subbasin and the West Whitewater Subbasin. And I believe it's important to note that our replenishment assessment program in its entirety is both funded by the replenishment assessment charge and the state water project tax for those capital charges and other charges on the statement of charges by the Department of Water Resources. And our proposed tax rate for the upcoming fiscal year is 6 cents per $100 per assessed valuation, and CVWD's current rate is 11 cents per $100 per assessed valuation. So you can see the dramatic difference there on the other end. So even though we do not have a similar replenishment assessment charge rate, we also do not have a similar tax rate. So they are opposite. So they're collecting more on their tax as compared to the rate rack, and we are collecting more on a rack as compared to our tax. So that's how we are able to balance that out in comparison to them. With our proposed replenishment assessment charge, based off the estimated projection figures for the West Whitewater Subbasin and the Mission Creek Subbasin, as it indicated in the engineer's report of $235 per acre foot, we will produce an approximate $10,499, $10,499,800 in revenues for the general fund. This is an increase of $893,600 as compared to the $215 per acre foot rate. But this rate change will also increase our source of supply expense in the operating fund, as the operating fund pays the general fund for that production rate. And that will increase that fund expenses by $677,200. So overall, the increase from $215 to $235 will produce a net fiscal impact to the agency as a whole of an increase of $216,400. Legal counsel has reviewed this report, and staff recommendation is the board open the public hearing on the proposed replenishment assessment to be levied in both areas of benefit, receive public testimony, close the public hearing, and adopt resolution number 1349 for the West Whitewater River Subbasin, making findings of fact relevant and material to levying the replenishment assessment within the West Whitewater River Subbasin. Resolution number 1350, West Whitewater River Subbasin, levying the 2025-2026 West Whitewater River groundwater replenishment assessment in the amount of $235 per acre foot. Resolution 1351 for Mission Creek Subbasin, making findings of fact relevant and material to levying the replenishment assessment within the Mission Creek Subbasin. And resolution number 1352 for the Mission Creek Subbasin, levying the 25-26 Mission Creek groundwater replenishment assessment in the amount of $235 per acre foot. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions and pass it off for the opening of the public hearing.
Right. So we can, first, if there are any questions for our finance director.
I have no questions.
I have none.
Okay, and so we can now open the public hearing. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak about these items. Again, similar to our other public comment, we ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Are there any members of the public who would like to come forward to speak on the items that we're discussing at this point? Seeing none, we can move to, I will close the public comment portion of the hearing, and we will proceed to discussion and deliberation amongst the board. Are there any questions or comments that Director Grasha would like to make about this?
I don't have any questions. And I'll hold my comments, my story for another time.
Okay. Director McKenna.
Well, I will make one comment, and that is that the small increase in replenishment access charge, it goes through onto my water bill from Mission Springs. It's about $9 a month. It used to be $7, but my property taxes, because of the reduction from Desert Water Agency, have dropped by $200 a year since I joined the board. I don't take credit for that, but it seems to me we're getting good value. Thanks.
Right, thank you. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer.
No questions or comments. Thank you.
I have nothing else. So with that, I'll look for a motion to adopt resolutions 1349 through 1352, making findings in fact and levying replenishment assessment charges for fiscal year 2025, 2026 for the West Whitewater River and Mission Creek subbasins.
So moved.
All right, I'll look for a second.
I'll second.
All right, so I have a first from Director Gracia and a second from Secretary Treasurer Bloomer. May we have the roll call, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director McKenna,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. All right, it's now to item 10, which is our general manager's report, what will be presented to us by our current finance director.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. So we have our general manager's report for the last 2 weeks. We'd like to provide an update on our polyethylene service replacement project status. And I'm pleased to announce that as of June 11th, 2025, the last 2 services, the known polyethylene services within Desert Water Agency service area have been replaced. And I do want to make the caveat that all known. We have gone through an extensive effort to document them all, but of course there may be one or so out there, but we're hoping that we got them all. A little bit of background on this effort. From 1972 to 1983, DWA's standard water service installation specified polyethylene service piping. At that time, the life expectancy of this PE material was expected to be around 50 years. It should be noted that in 1983, Desert Water Agency changed from the polyethylene to a type K copper service pipe material that has a lifespan expectancy of over 100 years. And according to DWA experience, we started seeing a tremendous increase in the polyethylene service pipeline failures as they tend to split along the length of the pipeline, which leads to significant amount of water loss, damaged roads, maintenance costs, and disruption to the community. If you look in the pictures there, the one down on the bottom, there is, you can see it's about a 10-inch split in the pipe in the service line. And that's as compared to in your galvanized and copper, you typically see the pinhole leaks rather than these massive splits. And so you can see the damage that has been done because of these types of leaks. So it was a large problem for the agency that caused a lot of damage. And so it definitely was something that we needed to accelerate the replacements of. In 2018 is when we started to see that spike at an alarming rate of the failures of these polyethylene service lines, which was about 5 to 15 years in advance of their life expectancy. So these failures did not only result in large water losses, but they caused significant street damage that you saw in the previous pictures. As a result of that unprecedented number of service leaks, the agency initiated the PE service replacement program with the goal to reduce labor costs, reduce repair costs, and to minimize the amount of water loss from the system. Staff identified approximately 4,400 1-inch polyethylene services and 882-inch polyethylene services in our distribution system through that large effort to identify all of them. In 2020, we were able to accelerate that replacement program even further as this work was able to be performed while adhering to the COVID distancing protocols that the agency put in place. And as proof as the outcome and the effectiveness of this replacement program, you can see the amount that in the blue bars is how much we invested in the program each year, how many leaks were on service lines in the corresponding years. And you can see over time that has dropped a significant amount. And so this this polyethylene service line replacement program has been extremely successful for the agency. Moving on to the next item, Desert Water Agency, I just want to announce will be closed this Thursday on June 19th in observance of Juneteenth. And last week, we had the opportunity in regards to the governor's proposed Delta Conveyance Trailer Bill that aims to streamline the planning and permitting process for the Delta Conveyance project. The goal was to advance the project to a stage where the participating agencies, such as ourselves, would be able to come to the point through the permitting process to completion so that we can make the decision for our final investment into the project so that the project can be funded, authorized funding for the construction and begin construction. This effort supports the modernization of the state water project infrastructure and also enhances the system's ability to adapt to climate change. On June 11th, staff took part in legislative briefings on the trailer bill. The state water contractors led a coalition of over 17 organizations. I believe it was just under 40 people in attendance, and in meetings with legislators to discuss the bill, the overall impact, and its significance in terms of reliability to California as a whole and individual water districts, climate adaptation, affordability, and also job creation, as we had representatives from labor unions there as well. Together, the groups met with representatives from over more than 40 Senate and Assemblyman offices. For now, the bill has been deferred, but is not ruled out as far as its ability to be passed later on in the legislative session. So we expect more efforts to be led by the state water contractors on this front. Moving on to the system leaks from May 27th to June 9th, we had 39 leaks within the system. Now, typically the average weekly leak rate is around 12 to 13 on any given week, but this is more than that. And this is generally due to the change in weather. Once weather starts to increase significantly, we have expansion within the pipelines, which causes the leaks. And so we'll have an increased leak rate for a few weeks, and then it'll settle out and then return back to our typical leak rate, I should say. And then we'll also see this when the seasons shift again and cools down because of the contraction. We'll also see the same thing. It's leaks spike for a little bit and then they settle back down. For these 39 leaks, we expended 417 labor hours. And then there's the map showing where they're located within our system. For human resources meeting and events, a few items I'd like to highlight on the HR director's listing here is that they're working and meeting on the safety and workplace safety violence prevention program planning meeting. Also, we held Lincoln Financial on-site meetings with staff and also hosted a live stream blood drive on May 28th. For my meetings and activities, I'd like to highlight, we met on June 5th with Metropolitan Water District, Coachella Valley Water District regarding the Paris Seepage Recovery Project for an update there. And on June 11th, I attended those advocacy meetings in Sacramento for the Delta Conveyance Project. On the 13th, we met with Metropolitan and CVWD again regarding our exchange agreement. We are, as I'd mentioned at our last meeting, we are in the beginning stages of renegotiating that agreement that expires, that is set to end in May in 2035. So we're looking to extend that further. And yesterday, we held another strategic planning session with our department heads to further that effort. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Director Grasha, do you have any questions for Ms. Sines?
I don't have a single question. Thank you.
All right. Director McKenna.
Well, I have a question that popped into my head during the conference in Denver, and that is on leaks. How do we normally become aware of a leak, and how long does it take us to get there and fix it?
Most of our leaks that we respond to, they perk up through the asphalt, and you'll see water bubbling in the asphalt. Typically, a customer will call in, or a business may call in, reporting that bubbling, and we will respond immediately once we receive the call to investigate. We'll determine how large the leak is, and we'll repair it. If it's a larger leak, we'll repair it immediately. If it can wait a couple days so we can get some crews, we'll let it wait. But typically, we have repairs done within 2 to 3 days max. Yeah, very fast response.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer?
I don't have any questions, but I have sent in reports on leaks, and the crews are on site right away, even on the weekends downtown.
I've
So-
never seen a single leak, so I don't know where all this is happening, but
Oh,
Must be me.
come to my neighborhood. They happen all the time. Yes, I've called in many of them. And to Mr. Johnson's point, depending on how severe they are, I mean, there have been times where I have followed the trail of water and there's already a cone that says DWA on it, which means that somebody from DWA has already been there, assessed it, obviously is having somebody come later to fix it. And so that is always refreshing. And yeah, the response rate is very quick, but yes, there are quite a few of them out there in our older neighborhoods. But what I didn't hear in response to the question from Director McKenna is, what about the leaks that don't bubble to the surface?
Well, if leaks do not bubble to the surface, we do not know they're there. And most of the leaks, though, because of the sand that we have, they reach the top surface. I cannot tell you how many leaks that may be occurring that we're not aware of at this time, but I can tell you that when we do discover leaks, we're on them very quickly.
All right. Well, thank you. We can move now to item 11, which is director's reports on meetings, events attended on behalf of the agency. And we'll start with Director Grasha, please.
okay. So going back to Tuesday, the 3rd, the Desert Water Board meeting I attended, of course. And then on the 4th, the board workshop, which has kept me busy researching all the little things that were discussed then. And I have 1,000 questions for our next meeting or whenever we talk about that again. The Making Conservation a Way of Life on the 4th. And then the 5th, I attended the Desert Valley Business Association legislative meeting. A couple of things came up at that, kind of relevant. The In-N-Out Burger is going to be coming along soon. I'm told that they're going to expedite it once the plans get submitted. Also, the Desert Hot Springs planning director gave a report on a new, another new warehouse next to the Amazon warehouse, and the installation of a new signal light at 19th. And so because I live right there at the next street, I was like, well, how many trucks do you expect going in and out of there? And he's a day. And he says, we measure them by the minute, and wouldn't give me an estimate on how many a day. So that'll tell you what they've got going on there. Also, the reason I brought up the question on backflow devices, the chair of that legislative committee has asked at least 3 times, and on the subject of backflow. I don't know what his interest is in that. He's a developer, engineer, And I don't think I got the exact answer he wanted, but maybe you guys could get him squared away on that. He's at 3 different meetings. He's brought that up. What about the backflows? Like, I remember at least 4 meetings that subject coming up. And so I tried to explain that. I thought last time at our meeting here, there was, it seemed like it was left that we were waiting for clarification on something. And I don't know if that was something that was said here or at CVWD when they were talking about it. But maybe if you guys could get together on that. And then go back to, that's it. Can't be it. No, that's not it. On the 12th, the inaugural meeting of the Coachella Valley Power Agency. And I've toyed with, you know, how I would report on that meeting. It's not, certainly not on our list, but I felt like I had to go. And so I did. And lots of politics going on there. I'll just leave it at that, and we'll see how big the ball of fire is when it finally seemingly comes to a conclusion and CVWD says, okay, we're going to do this ourselves, because I don't see how that's going to work the way they're trying to set that up. They're going to be rotating their directors from a new electric company that they're forming at CVAG by rotating mayors. And I don't see how any way possible that could work. You know, the mayors rotate every year. There's a new mayor, and you're going to have essentially a brand new board every time these mayors rotate out, which is every year at the same time. A train wreck. And there was another item in there that didn't make any sense. It was on the in the bylaws, where they're going to allow the executive committee for CVAG to, I read it in there, it didn't get brought up, nobody challenged it. And I just couldn't believe that didn't get brought up, that they would have essentially veto authority over the things that JPA did. And I for the life of me, I don't know, I don't think I read it wrong, you know. But it was like they left that in there so that CVAG could never lose control of that JPA. It seemed to me. So I could be completely wrong. But when I read through that, I was like, oh, God, this is never going to work. So let's just see how long it takes for that to work its way through the system. And then, they hired new legal counsel. And I must say, he seems to have an excellent track record in that area. And that was almost not unanimous. They only have a 3-vote board right now. And the guy from Indio didn't want to vote for this guy that's got all the qualifications in the world to do the job. I could not for the life of me understand that. And that's what made me realize, oh God, here we go. So anyway, I'm sure they were all paying attention to the same thing. They did grant him a contract for 100 days. So they have an attorney for 100 days. And then that brings us to today's meeting. And I believe that's it. If I left anything off, I'll beg for mercy.
Okay, Director McKenna.
All right. So outside meetings, I attended our June 4th board workshop on conservation. June 8th through 11th, I went to the American Waterworks Association annual conference and exhibition in Denver. On June 16th, yesterday, I tuned into the Mission Springs Water District Board meeting. I'll start with that one because it was long. They had a 33 item, 693-page agenda. So I'll go quickly. They adopted a human resources report. They adopted sewer and water standby assessments. They approved putting delinquent charges onto county property tax rolls. They adopted a budget, a new procurement policy. extended TKE's engineering contract, renewed Intelisys IT contract, approved a water supply analysis for the 20th Avenue Logistics Center, which is the one you mentioned. It's 1 million square feet. I would say they'll make Indian Canyon Boulevard undrivable when those two
Well,
warehouses.
part of the questioning was how long it was going to take me to get to the new In-N-Out with all those trucks lined up.
Use Gene Otley. They nominated Russ Martin for Aqua Region 9 board. They revised their approved meetings list and removed Desert Hot Springs Planning Commission from the list. They awarded a contract to our friends, Tyler Technologies, for implementation of their ERP Pro 10 system. They are expecting a full plan check approval for their headquarters building in September. They have fully tested the wastewater treatment plant. They have updated the groundwater protection plan. Long-range financial plan indicates, and the long-range financial plan indicates an increase in rates is needed. So we're doing a rate study soon. They approved a new Mellow Roost bond agreement for the Skyborn development, replacing the existing one, with Director Duff dissenting. Their meeting ended at 5:56 p.m. On the Denver conference, I spent a lot of time looking at this leak question and water waste and conservation. I have some more comments later on conservation. And you saw this too, we may be looking at, we would like you to look at, staff to look at, a system of satellite radar detection of leaks that can look through the sidewalks and pavements and see leaking water mains as low as a half a liter a minute. I think we may have an opportunity to find more leaks, take up more streets, and save more water. So we'll be talking about that later. Also, there's acoustic detection that can go on fire hydrants. In the early hours of the morning, listens for water flowing when the neighborhoods are generally quiet and not using water. And there also is a possibility we should investigate installing district meters that look at the water going into an entire neighborhood. And we may find anomalies in water usage that may tell us there's leaks in that neighborhood. None of this is free, of course, so we have to analyze that. And that's my notes from there. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer.
I have two things. On June 4th was the board workshop, and then I subbed in for Director Bowman at the exec meeting on the 12th, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. So outside of Desert Water Agency meetings, board meetings, executive committee workshops, and so on, I also attended the ACE conference last week in Denver with Director McKenna and with Ernie Valenciano, who was with us. And those of us have been, I think most of us have been to that conference before. It's quite intense. It's quite large. And I was pleased to see that there was quite a bit of information about conservation at this conference. Seems to be more than previous because it tends to be quite focused on engineers and engineering and predominant topics. And I would like to echo what Director McKenna was talking about earlier with regard to different ways of leak detection that we may not, that would enhance what we're doing today with the visible leak detection in terms of how we address that in the future. Those are, as he said, those are not inexpensive necessarily. So those would have to be things we'd work into, future budgets if we decided as a board to go in that direction. But I do think it's certainly worth exploring more. So we look forward to maybe having some feedback from staff about what some of those options might be and who some of those vendors might be, et cetera, and direction for going forward for this agency to be more proactive about leak detection in the system. And hopefully that will help us with our water, urban water use objectives from making conservation a California way of life. And I think that's it. So with that, we can move to directors' comments and requests. And I'll start with Director Gracia.
I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the conclusion of the litigation with the tribe, and want to thank all of our staff for the work that they did. But I especially want to thank our attorney, Mr. Riddell. I believe this has gone through 4 general managers. I could be wrong, but I think it goes all the way back to Mr. Lucar. And he has been through this thing every single day of his life. I hope he's being able to catch up on his sleep. I got to say that with a new board coming in, it must have been pulling his hair out, trying to figure out how to herd the cats that we can be. And the extraordinary work that he did on that shouldn't go unmentioned. And so I want to thank him, and I'm sure this entire board does as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Director McKenna?
Actually, I have 2 topics here, but they're so long, I think I'll save one for next time. So I'll address the question of conservation. And I'm either blessed or cursed with a lot of time to think because I'm retired. But when we had our board workshop on conservation and we presented with this 42% reduction in usage, I mean, it's staggering, really. I don't know if the final number will be 42%, but even if it's half that, we would be challenged. And how do we get there? You know, if you look at what you have to do, all the turf has to go. You know, in entire both cities, all the toilets that are not low flow have to be replaced. All the faucets that are not restricted, shower heads as well, need to be replaced. Laundry equipment all needs to be water smart. Irrigation controllers all need to be smart. If you do all of that, you might get to 42%. And we can't do that. We haven't got the authority, to mandate changes inside people's homes. The city does. The city could do this by ordinance, and both cities, we need to ask them, I think, to start enforcing water conservation measures at change of title, like they do in Los Angeles. I mean, we just have to push harder. We still don't get there. We need to be talking about reclamation. We need to be talking about direct-to-consumer water purification of wastewater. We don't do that now. What we're planning, what we see in our future is, oh, well, we'll do, primary, secondary treatment, we'll put it back in the aquifer. That does not get us to 42%. It doesn't get us anywhere, in fact. This is such a game changer. We need to rethink everything. And I was taken back when I thought about this to a book I read. It came out in 1999. I think it was Who Moved My Cheese by, Dr. Spencer Johnson. It's not a big management tome. It was sort of flippant book. And the allegory was that two mice looking for the missing cheese. One of them fusses and frets and tries to, where to go? And the other one sets about getting new cheese. And that's us. We have to adopt, complete new thinking about where we're going with conservation. And it's everywhere. In our negotiations with the tribe, they evaluated whether or not a wastewater treatment plant was a project that they would pursue, and they found it economically not viable. And we know that too. We never make a profit on wastewater, and we probably never will. It isn't economically viable, but it may become mandatory. It may become necessary. If we have to treat our wastewater and turn it into potable water, it will cost double what we're charging now. So our customers are in for shock. But in addition to that, every assumption we've made in our general plan, for instance, I'm not a fan of that general plan, but right the way through Delta Conveyance, sites, all of those assumptions have to be reassessed. I think sites would stand up to a new analysis from a reliability point of view. I'm not sure the Delta Conveyance project would. If we reduced our usage by 42%, do we really need it? We've not done that analysis, but we're going to have to. Everywhere that we have a mindset of how we're going to do things and how the future is going to develop, all of it has to be reassessed. And that's pretty major. And that's going to fall on our conservation team. Not just how do we get there, but what does it mean for everything we do? So big task ahead. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer?
No comments or requests, thanks.
And I would, I mean, I think the things that Director McKenna has just brought up are things that I brought up as well, as far as our investments in these programs like sites and Delta Conveyance, and future programs that we might consider investing in if we're not actually able to use the water because of a conservation target provided to us by the state of California, then that certainly requires some rethinking. And as I've also pointed out, this target is a huge lift for these communities that we live in and that we support. And it is going to require their involvement. And by their involvement, I think, I'm referring to not just the people that live here, but the municipalities where they live. This is not going to be easy in any way, shape, or form. And I'm so pleased to have the conservation team that we have and the enthusiasm and the passion that they have for the work that they do. And I also know it's not easy for them either. So we will certainly, as we proceed through this time, I expect that we will be investing more in that team and more in the work that we do that maybe even we don't consider conservation per se, but as we've mentioned a few minutes ago, things like leak detection and like creating new sources of water within our own boundaries as opposed to something that's imported. Those are all things that I think ultimately need to be at least evaluated. And with that, I will close the public part of this meeting. It is 10 minutes of 10. If the board could meet at 10 o'clock in the conference room for the closed session, that would be great. And thank you. All right, so welcome back to open session, and I can report that we took no reportable action in closed session. And
I would like to make a motion to appoint John David Tate as Desert Water Agency's Chief Engineer. With that designation, will fill the role of Assistant General Manager, Chief Engineer, effective July 4th, 2025, to coincide with the General Manager, Chief Engineer Johnson's retirement. Salary will be in accordance with the agency's approved salary chart and benefits according to the benefits MOU currently in effect.
thank you. So I have a first. I will second that.
Okay.
So may we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Grasha,
Aye.
Director McKenna,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And with that, we can adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.